In preparation for using the pen tool this week, I actually want to revisit basic shapes and how we can use a combination of basic shapes to create more complex shapes. This is in an effort to use what we have to avoid drawing every aspect or every piece of an icon. Okay, we want to make smart decisions to create really crisp shapes and avoid overdrawing something if possible. To get started, I have a 10 by 10 artboard. If you already have an artboard set up at another dimension, it's absolutely fine. What I want you to do is to grab your ellipse tool and add two round circles. Obviously, circles are round. Add two of them to your artboard. And just for the sake of keeping it easy, go ahead and make them large. Okay, so they're easy to access. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that the first shape I created, of course, is in the background. And when I added my second shape, it's up on top. And if you'll recall from last week, you can affect the arrangements or the order of your shapes by going up to your object menu, using arrange, and moving things forwards or backwards or all the way to the front or all the way to the back. Okay. Now, in this instance, they're exactly where I need them to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my black arrow to draw out a marquee selection and make sure that those are both active. Now, again, these are two separate objects. And in this instance, I'm trying to create a more complex shape, and I want to use circles to do it. And there are a few ways to do that within Illustrator. The first thing I want to point out is that you do have a shape tool. And if you go, it's on the left side and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down. It should be the default tool. It's going to look like two circles overlapping with an arrow, and it's called the Shape Builder tool. Okay. And when you have objects selected, remember we did a marquee selection, so these circles are selected, and then you choose your Shape Builder tool and you come over and hover, you're going to see that sections of your shape light up. Okay, and by light up, I mean essentially fill in with this sort of grid-like pattern. And what I can do here is I can, for instance, click on areas of my shape. So for instance, maybe I wanted to create sort of a crescent moon shape. I wanted that one. I'll go ahead and click each of these just to show you what is happening. And when I go back and grab my black arrow, you're going to see that by using my Shape Builder tool, I was able to cut these individual segments apart. Okay. So again, if I wanted to create a crescent moon, which would obviously be a little bit sharper than what this actually is, I don't have to go and grab my pen tool to do that. If I can think through geometry and what shapes might interact with each other to create something more complex, I can then use my Shape Builder tool to cut them out. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and place these shapes back together. Okay. And again, I'm going to go ahead and do a marquee selection. Make sure that all of the pieces are active. And I'm going to go back and grab that Shape Builder tool. Okay. And again, they're all going to highlight as I hover over them. But this time, rather than clicking to separate them because they're already separate, I'm going to click and hold and drag, and you're seeing that I'm drawing out a line. And when I do that, it's going to join these individual segments or these individual objects into one object. And I'll do the same thing here. Okay, so this is another instance where maybe I wanted to create something that was vaguely like a figure 8. And again, taking two circles, overlapping them, and then using my Shape Builder tool to join them, I now have one closed shape. Okay, one closed object that is a little bit more complex than what I had to begin with. Okay. All right, so hopefully that all makes sense so far. And the Shape Builder tool is something that is sort of my go-to. I find that it's a really flexible tool as I'm designing. Okay. Now, it is possible that you're going to have the need to use something more complex than what you're able to achieve with your Shape Builder tool. And so what I want to do is I'm going to do a marquee selection, and I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of that. And let's draw something more complex. Okay. I'm going to use my star shape. And in this instance, I think I have an 8-point star. And I'll go ahead and use a circle. And again, I'm going to make sure that I make this large enough that it overlaps. Okay. And I can bring my star forward. I think I can get a better sense of how much overlap I have. Okay, I can see that that's attractive. If I want to make sure that they're absolutely centered together, I can use my black arrow, do another marquee selection, and you're going to see up here on your options bar, you have some options for alignments. Okay, and this is a horizontal align center. So I'll go ahead and click that one. And then I have vertical align center, and I'll click that one. And that did shift that a little bit to ensure that those were centered. Okay. All right, so again, you could go through with your shape builder tool and play and see what you could create with your shape builder tool. But in this instance, I actually want to go and use something more complex. And over here at the bottom of your panel bar, you'll see that you have options for transform, align, and Pathfinder. And Pathfinder is the one that we're going to use. Okay. Now, even though I have clicked Pathfinder, you're going to see that transform and align open with it. Now I'm going to pull that apart. And for those of you who may not be seeing these buttons over here on your panel bar, remember you can come up to Window and Pathfinder. Okay. Now, Pathfinder, if you just hover over any of these buttons, again, you always get a sense of what it is by what it's called. So you'll see here we can use this to divide shapes, we can trim things. So what's in front will be trimmed from the back, merge, we'll join two shapes together, okay, so on and so forth. Above, you also have shape modes, okay, and these work very similarly to your shape builder tool. So this united, again, this trimmed from each other, so the front is subtracted from the back, okay, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to run through a couple of these. So again, I have both of my shapes active. I'm going to come over here and choose my first option, which is divide. Okay. And it's not going to look like I really did anything. So I'm going to click off. And if I come back with my black arrow, you're going to see, per usual, if you've got something complex that is being treated as one object, it's going to move the entire work together. And so if I want to access the individual pieces, I need to grab my white arrow. And when I grab my white arrow, you can more clearly see what's happened here with divide. Okay, it has used what was in front to basically trim out from what was behind it, but it's kept everything. So I now have these areas of my star that have been trimmed from the center of my star using the circle as the trimming point. I can also get to the inner triangles here. Okay, so quickly running through that. Okay, you'll see if I grab my star, for instance, I can go ahead and color that separately than from these pieces. Which I can then also color separately from these pieces. Okay. There also just may be an instance, of course I can go ahead and recolor this, which I'll do quickly. But again, maybe I'm trying to replicate something that I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is actually more of this central area. It's the star and it's the circle, but it's actually not these exterior points. So I can hit the delete key to eliminate those. Okay, so again, thinking about what it is you're trying to replicate and what you might be able to create using simplistic shapes. I'm going to go ahead and grab my black arrow, do a marquee selection so I can just delete everything that's on my artboard. And I'm just going to create a couple more simplistic shapes here. Again, I need to make sure both are selected. And I'll just run through these quickly. So again, you see that this is going to trim. All right, so if I select that option and come back, again, needing to use your white arrow, okay, you'll see again what was on top was trimmed from what was in the back. And I'm just going to step back quickly. If I move on to the next option, this is going to merge. All right, I think that's easy to see here. That's one object. If I go to the next one, okay, you'll see that it's keeping, it's cropping essentially what was overlapping, okay, and it's also maintaining the exterior of this particular shape. So if I want to come over here and grab it, I can fill it, or I can simply choose to delete the entire object if I want to. Okay, I'm going to step back again. I'll step forward because I went one too far. And again, I'll go ahead and make sure both of these are selected, and you can work through these at your leisure. Okay, so again, think about what you have access to, think about your simple shapes, think about shape builder tools, shape modes, and pathfinders for creating either your entire icon, if that's possible, or creating components of your icons. I'm actually going to use some of these techniques to create a crescent moon and draw a face on it in a future video. But again, I'll be using a combination of really simplistic shapes to comprise most of the moon, and then use my pen tool to draw the sort of hand-drawn elements that make up what you see on its face.